Welcome to the program. Your host, Ron Whitlock, with Senator Eddie Lucio. Senator, we've toured the Desal plant, and the audience has seen now, as we're talking, the pictures of you and Chairman Todd Hunter viewing the Desal plant. 10 years in operation here in South Texas, the southmost area of Brownsville, right on the Eddie Lucio Highway, by the way. And why is Desal so important for drought-stricken Texas and also the valley, which has so much trouble getting its water from Mexico as owed?
First, I just want to say that I have a sense of accomplishment because we carried the bill 10 years ago to establish this Senate bill, and we also sponsored a House bill at the same time, and it was wonderful. We didn't think we had a chance to pass it, but we tried so hard, and we got it through. Now, 10 years later, it's a wonder. It's become now what will be the model for the rest of the state to follow. Right now, I'm told that this plant here that we're sitting on produces no less than 40% of the industrial and municipal water needs of this community. It will continue to grow. It will continue to grow in terms of its outpour, and as this area continues to grow in population, so will the water that will be used to address the needs, whether there be schools or hospitals, businesses, and of course residential growth, and anything that deals with economic development. It's wonderful to see that this project 10 years ago has matured to this level, and I can't go without commending and appreciating what the Brownsville Public Utilities Board has done along the way to make it all possible. I mean, there's been some wonderful stakeholders that have come together to make it work.
I just asked the senator, the audience has already heard, Chairman Hunter, why is Desal so important for all of South Texas, and I guess in particular for our viewers in Corpus Christi and in Laredo? Why is it so important for your home county, Oasis, and the surrounding counties in the coastal bend?
Well, if you look at the drought forecast, you look at the climatology forecast, it's not good. It's not good at all. And it shows that water is drying up. So unless you focus on water, and South Texas seems to be taking the lead, especially here in Brownsville. But you look from Nueces to Cameron, water is a big topic. And they understand that you got to have water to bathe, you got to have water to drink, you have to have water to live, and we have to have water to have recreational use and industrial use. We can't just rely on rain anymore, because it shows that when it rains, evaporation is the #1 loss of water. So water is a big deal. Water is important, and we're running out of water.
Additionally, we have 5,000 people on average moving the state of Texas every year because we're the economic engine and job growth in the nation. So subsequently, we're not getting more water, we have more people. So that in itself shows we've got a big problem, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. The more people that come, the more use. In fact, Dr. Steve Lyons testified at some of the hearings, and what he indicated was municipal water usage is going to skyrocket. So that means all our cities and our folks that live in the cities, the towns outside, it hurts agriculture, it hurts ranching, it hurts our municipal industrial use if you don't have it. So the more folks come in, water desalination is a source that makes sure they have water.
Now, you, Chairman Hunter, and you, Senator Lucio, both on the Joint Committee, you in the Senate, him in the House, on Desal, what's going to happen in the next session of the legislature that needs the input of my audience to help you get it done?
Well, I foresee a major piece of legislation that Chairman Hunter will be carrying, and I certainly would be sponsoring on the Senate side. And we're just very fortunate to have leadership in South Texas, such as Chairman Hunter. We served in the House together back in the late 1980s, and we've been friends ever since. We understand the issues, we understand the needs of the people of South Texas and the whole state for that matter. But I think, as the chairman just alluded to, this will be taking center stage in terms of one of the most important issues that the legislature will face. So we not only need to pass legislation, we also have to find the resources, the money that will go to address these projects around the state.
But when he served with you in the House, he was a Democrat, and now he's a Republican. Do you hold that against him?
No, I tell you what, if I ever had a brother in the Republican Party, and I don't even look at Todd as, in terms of labels, he is my brother. I love him dearly, and I think the feeling is mutual. So, we just have a wonderful relationship. And if we can get together and appreciate one another and care for one another, then I think the whole legislature should look at us for direction. We'll be happy to give it to him.
Absolutely. And remember, water is every party.
I know you're both in a hurry, and ask you one other question. It's a big deal for South Texas, the TWIA problem and situation all along the Gulf Coast from here to Beaumont. What's going to happen in this session that the audience viewing this telecast and webcast needs to understand, and what do they need to do to help you guys try to get TWIA revised in such a way that, like he did originally, Sherman Hunter, back in the 90s when he was a Democrat? What needs to happen to get TWIA revised in such a way that it's going to be devastating to the economy of the entire Gulf Coast?
Well, kudos for Chairman Hunter, because he's done more work on that particular issue than anybody else along the Texas coast, quite frankly, and especially in our area. He's held meetings in just about every community in the coastal Bend area, all the way to Brownsville. And I think we should listen attentively to his recommendations. I know one thing, I would like personally for us, to talk to the rest of our colleagues around the state and let them know that this is a Texas issue. It's not a regional issue. It's an issue that affects the Texas family member along the coast, but it impacts the entire state. More than 80% of the goods that all of Texas uses come through the coastal area of our great state. So Again, we'll turn to Chairman Hunter for direction on TWIA, but I personally would like to see us handle it in a statewide basis.
Right now we're working on a funding formula. Hopefully the various groups come up with a funding formula for the next session, which Senator Lucio and I will work together. We always have on windstorms, so that's the first. Second, I'll tell you what I'm very bothered about, and that's the agencies that oversee this. In my opinion, they haven't done a good job at all. Why are we having these rate hikes? Why are we having rate increases? We have constituents that now can't afford their mortgages because their insurance has gone so high. Just on Friday, I get information on a newscast that a rate went up 70+% in Dallas. So with these rate hikes going along and the agencies apparently not caring, Senator, that they are basically gouging our constituents, maybe we have an opportunity now for Dallas and North Texas to join with us, because now they're feeling the effects of a lot of these rate hikes. Always remember, in our areas from Cameron to Nueces, most of our people have to have 3 policies: a house policy, a wind policy, and a flood policy. Most inland only have 1 policy. And the other thing is, when an agency comes out and says only coastal counties are to have their automobile policies taxed, our farmers and ranchers to be taxed, and nobody else in the state, Senator, has to pay it, I say it's time to change that state agency.
It has to be a statewide issue. The approach has to come from all of us, no matter where we live in the state, to address this issue. We just cannot afford it. No other word. We cannot afford to take it up regionally and individually, because then people will be priced out of their homes.
That's right.
Welcome back to the program. Your host, Ron Whitlock, with John Brusiak. John, welcome to the program. Glad to have you, and glad you're hosting us. Appreciate that here at your Desal plant in Brownsville. We've not been here in some time. Last time we did an interview with Senator Lucio with Frank Manla, his close friend who served with him in the Senate at that particular time. They both are very complimentary here before this audience and this host as to what you've done here over the decade. You've been taking brackish water 7 miles from the source of the wells and bringing it over to your plant, using it. And the senator said you're using up to 40% of your water supply for industrial and potable water uses in the community out of this plant. He's correct in that regard? 40%?
Yeah, I think right now it's about 25%. We're expanding the plant to 11 million gallons per day by end of this year, our first quarter of 15. Once we finish that expansion, then we'll be about 40%
Wow,
water
fantastic.
for the city.
And the cost is approximately, according to your staff, in the meeting prior to this interview, about 70 cents per 1,000 gallons. Is that what I understood her to say?
Actually, the cost of surface water treatment, which is our surface water plants, is running less than $1 right now. We probably, we're doing some modifications at the water plants. That price will probably go up to a little, maybe over $1 because of the debt service coverage. The actual
That's out of the Rio Grande, or that's out of this plant?
that's out of the Rio Grande.
Okay, out of the Rio
We've
Grande.
got 2 surface plants on.
Right, yeah.
And those plants are old, so there isn't a lot of debt service on the actual facilities, so you really just got operating costs of what's driving the less than $1 cost.
Wow.
The brackish plants right now, I think, are running around 230 or 240 per 1,000. That number will drop when the expansion is done. Reason being, the more water you push through it, the lower the cost is of the outfall of the final product water. So we built the plant originally, piping wise and facility size, for about 20 million per day. We were only putting 6.5 through it. So you're still paying the debt service on the improvements of the oversizing. And as you grow into that oversizing, your cost per 1,000 a gallon of water comes down.
How does the aspect of using desalinization, whether it be brackish or directly out of the sea, come into play when you see the competing situation around the state between municipalities and agriculture? How do those two interplay as far as you're concerned?
No, I think it's huge because as you're seeing, we're at 25% now, going to 40% of water being used from the ground, which is brackish. The brackish is no benefit for irrigation purposes. It's too salty. That frees up more water in the river and behind the dams for agricultural use. And as more and more cities start to develop a brackish groundwater supply, which I think you're going to see in the years to come, that's just going to allow for more surface water rights to be sold or returned to the river and watershed.
Wow. What other areas of the state can use your technology that you've been piloting here in Brownsville over the last decade?
One of the slides that Genoveva Gomez showed the area of brackish supply in the state of Texas, and it looks to be about 2/3 of the state has an abundance of brackish groundwater.
Including West Texas, El Paso, and places like that?
Some of that, I'd have to look at that chart, and it's on the presentation if you've got a copy of that. But I think the farther west in those areas you get, the less reliability of finding any brackishes. But there's, for the most part in the state, there's areas that have brackish, particularly along the coastal areas.
Well, you got shrimp farming out in the West Texas area. You think there'd be enough? There's shrimp farming. They'd have enough to do what you're doing.
They may have to, if you go fairly deep, you can probably get into some salt water. I mean, it may be really salty water and not so much brackish water. You've seen a lot of that with the drilling for oil and gas. They get into a lot of salty water as they go real deep. Our stuff is fairly shallow. We're talking 300-400 feet surface.
Mr. Brusiak, as the CEO of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board, water is a key component of survival, not only from the standpoint of your family and your own life, but your jobs and everything else that relies on water. You either have water and you have life and business and so forth keeps going, or you don't have it. And that happened in Corpus Christi about 6 years ago. They had E. coli in the water. Everything was shut down. Their economy, tourist-wise, was impacted May, June, July, August. People heard the water was bad in Corpus, Port A, and the other areas that they serve. So it's really important. What did you think about the fact that Pemex had this fish kill not too many months ago, and you might have had bad water coming down the Rio Grande? What did you do to try to prepare for it?
Well, again, being at the end of the line, we were hoping that if if there was anything determined, we would know about it sooner than later, as opposed to being the first one in the line, say McAllen or some of the other cities.
Right.
But they did a lot of testing and a lot of extensive testing. They monitored Falcon. They didn't see any of that. Yeah, we looked at, we are fortunate here with Southmost, that if we had to shut down from the river, we could supply the city to some degree with groundwater until we got through that crisis, if there was some. I think you're going to see it even better now when we go to 40% of ours. We probably run the city off it to some degree. I mean, you're not going to have the pressures and the volumes that you have with a combined system. So that's a nice thing to have. If you can diversify and have a problem with the surface water, you could shut down and come off the.
So if you had a desal plant like this you have in Brownsville, in Corpus Christi, the coastal bend, or any other coastal area, or let's say in Laredo, some community like that, and you had it up to 40%, you could continue to maintain life and industry and business and restaurants and so forth, but you just have to curtail almost everything else.
That's correct. You cut out your lawn watering and some of these other things that you could do, and maximize your use in off-peak periods and things like that, and we could monitor. So we were fortunate to look at that and be able to, like I say, if we can accelerate finishing this project by this December and have it done, we'll feel a lot better of any problems. Another thing we've had is requests from other entities for emergency interconnect agreements to this facility out here because of the concern of the Rio Grande of contamination of what if we're talking East Rio Hondo right now about an interconnect for an emergency. Not to supply them water, but if the river is contaminated and there's a problem, they could connect here and run their system.
So where we've been through most of your life and my life, it's been quantity of water. Now we seem to be moving in the area of water toward quality and no contamination and safety and security of water. And you see that movement around the world and around this area, moving more to security almost over quantity?
Yeah, and I think we're seeing it even as well on our surface water. The regs are getting more and more stringent on surface water to where the cost is going to have to include some type of membrane treatment tacked onto a surface water plant just to meet future regs as they come down. And it's a safety issue and a health issue, which is good. And that's, I think, do you want to do that, or do you want to expand something like a Southmost or a desal project and get away from the surface water entirely?
Now, why would a desal plant like where we're sitting today be more secure to a viewer who's not really into it in depth? Why is this facility and water coming out of this facility more secure than surface water out of the Rio Grande, or as in Laredo and Corpus, surface water out of the Oasis?
Well, again, the water comes out of the ground. It's pumped. It's pumped through a pipeline, from a pump into a pipe underground, all the way to the plant here. Has no exposure to anybody of being able to, inject anything or do anything to it.
Bad guys.
It comes into the plant. Surface water plant, you got open reservoirs, you got open basins. They're just much more susceptible to people doing mischievous things to a surface water plant than they are on a groundwater system. Not that the groundwater they couldn't do anything to it. Much more difficult though to do that. And we monitor that with cameras and we watch it. If someone was messing with a well, we could watch that. Where surface water plants, you just have a lot of open areas of the water system that lends itself for contamination.
Mr. Brusiak, what kind of technology do you have here in your system that is seeking out E. coli, any other contaminants in your raw water coming in and then your potable? You have quite a bit of technology that monitors that for you?
As far as the brackish plant?
No, as far as the entire system.
Yeah, we have to monitor it for the state. We use chlorine and different disinfectants to measure that. It's measured constantly at the plant and in throughout the system. We monitor for those type of situations. We do the same thing here at the Southmost. So the state is very heavily regulates us to watch for those type of contaminants, and adding chlorine or disinfection takes care of that problem when it comes into the system.
To the audience, let's say in Oasis County where Chairman Hunter is trying to get a desal plant in his county of residency, why would they want to pay $2 per thousand for brackish water to be converted or seawater to be converted when they can get maybe surface water out of an oasis for $1, unlike you're doing. You're paying basically $1, más o menos, out of the Rio Grande, and you're paying $2, almost double, out of the Desal. Why are you able to do that fiscally? Why is that a good deal for some other community like Nueces County?
I think it's, again, do you want to diversify? And, the Oasis is an open system like the Rio Grande. You could have contamination, you could have a drought where the river levels dry up, and so you've got to, you maybe don't want to put 100% of your eggs in the desal basket, but half of them is pretty good. We do that on the power side as well. I mean, we have gas, we have coal, we purchase power. You don't just buy all gas, or you don't just buy all coal, or you don't buy all nuclear. You want that blend in the event gas prices go way up or coal prices go way up and gas prices go way down. You can keep your rates that way, and it's the same way with the water system. The more you can diversify, the much better off you are.
We'll be back in just a moment and let him discuss, if he has some time, what are the economic benefits to getting manufacturing industry, all other kind of job-creating entities to come to a community that's got all this diversity in water. We'll answer that question when we return, so stay tuned. Welcome to the program. Your host, Ron Whitlock, with John Brusiak, CEO, General Manager of the Brownsville Public Utilities Board. Now, Mr. Brusiak, does your Economic Development Corporation, your Chamber of Commerce, and your city and your county are seeking people to create jobs, bring industry to the Cameron County area, Brownsville, where you serve? Do they make use of the fact you've got all this redundancy, you've got all this security and water as part of the selling point to get people to locate and bring jobs to your community?
Yeah, I think the number one, if not number one or number two, is when an industry or development wants to come down here and look at Brownsville, the first thing they ask about is water. Second thing is electricity, and mainly the water. And that's probably the number one thing that they've heard about the contamination on the river, or possible contamination, and that's, I think, really important as a selling point to us whenever we meet with prospects with the BDC or the port or anyone else. First thing they bring up is, what's your water supply? Well, we've got a groundwater brackish desal system. We've got surface water. And so you got that diversity, and that's, I think, very important for most of these industries or corporations that want to locate. One, they want to make sure they got an abundant supply, and then they want a reliable supply that's drought-proof and a high-quality water in some cases, particularly in industry. It's very critical.
Wow. So the future is, in your opinion, all around the state of Texas and probably the nation and the world, to have some other source of water other than one source, obviously. Surface, ground, desal. What else do we need to look at as a nation, as a country, to make sure that we are economically viable for the future?
Yeah, I mean, particularly in this area down here, the surface, brackish, and then certainly ocean seawater continues. We're never going to run out of water in Brownsville along the coast, no matter what happens to the rest of the state. And so it's certainly, we'd like to do some future demonstration projects, maybe on a small scale. The cost of treatment and the cost of membranes is improving. The cost of the water, where it used to be $6 per thousand, now is down in 4.5 range. That'll drop. That'll continue to drop. And so you've got to look at all of those things in our area. Unfortunately, you go to El Paso, they've got some very little surface water. They use they've got some brackish water, which they're using right now, and then they're actually taking and injecting wastewater, treated wastewater, into the ground and recovering that and putting that into the system as well. So that would be something else that, like PUB, we're looking at possibly building a plant with Tenaska, a generation facility behind here.
Generating electricity.
Yeah, it'd be a gas-fired plant. We're supplying the water for the cooling of that plant from our wastewater treatment plant. We have 8 million gallons a day from effluent, which right now goes into a drain ditch out to the bay. We're going to route that back for cooling water out here behind the plant. So you look at reuse, certainly more and more favorable for Brownsville. Problem with reuse, you got to have somebody to take the water. You have reuse all day if no one's going to take it. You get a large industry, they're going to take it and use it. That's cheaper for them, it's cheaper for us. We don't need our surface supplies, and we don't need our groundwater supplies, and so we try to maximize every drop.
Wow. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with a wrap-up segment, so stay tuned. And John, thank you for
Ron,
coming.
thanks, as always, good to talk with you.
Always good to talk to you, and thank you for joining us here on Ron Whitlock Reports. Till next time, adios.